welcome to our Facebook Live event. I'm Lisette Gallaher, this is Dan Croisant, and we're here today to talk about peak electricity demand. As we're waiting for more people to tune in, go ahead and comment hello so that we know you're there. Just by commenting, you get an awesome companion mug. Also, throughout this segment, the more you comment, ask questions, answer our quiz questions, the more you'll be entered to win our grand prize, the Ecobee. So yeah, go ahead and comment hello so we know you're there. Dan, I have a joke for you.
Okay.
So why are wind turbines so popular?
I don't know.
'Cause they have a lot of fans.
Nice. I actually have one for you too, Lisette.
Okay.
What was the first German electric car?
I don't know. What?
A Volkswagen.
Okay. I can top that. Why did the gardener plant a light bulb?
No idea.
'Cause he wanted a power plant.
Nice.
Okay, again, I'm Lisette Gallaher. I'm a student here at UNCA, part of the Flip the Switch team. This is Dan Croisant. He is our facilities mechanical engineer, and we are here today to talk about peak electricity demand. As you tune in, go ahead and comment hello so that we know you're there, and you'll automatically get one of our amazing companion mugs. And throughout this segment, we'll have a little quiz that's going on down here at the bottom screen. Comment the answer, and if you comment, you will be entered to win 10 extra times for our grand prize, the Ecobee. Dan, would you care to explain what the Ecobee is?
Well, if you're familiar with what a programmable thermostat is, you can put your schedule in there to change the temperature within your house, depending upon when you're there and you're not there. So you can save some energy there. The Ecobee does that, but it takes it one step further in the fact that it's Wi-Fi enabled.
Wow.
So you can actually program that with your phone and change the temperature in your house on your phone. And it'll also connect to other electronics as well, like the Amazon Echo as well.
Wow, so fancy.
Very much
Makes
so.
me want one. Okay, again, welcome. I'm Lisette Gallaher. This is Dan Croisant, and let's start talking about peak electricity demand. So Dan, what is this graph we have here?
Well, here on the UNCA campus, we have one main power feed feeding the entire campus. And we're able to monitor that through our building automation system. So what you're seeing here is actually a live graph of our peak demand here on campus at 30-second intervals.
Wow.
So we'll be coming back to this at various times throughout the broadcast just to kind of see where we're at and see what's happening here on campus.
Okay.
Now, when we're talking about electricity, there are two main terms that we need to keep straight. The first is demand.
Okay.
And demand measures power. And units of that are kW, or kilowatts. The other term is consumption. Consumption is a unit of energy. And the units for that are kW, or kilowatt hours.
Okay.
So to demonstrate the difference between these two, I have a slide here that shows two different scenarios. In both scenarios, we have 3 light bulbs. Each are 100 watts, which is equal to 0.1 kW. And we're going to look at that over a 3-hour time span. So in the first scenario, which is at the top, we have 1 light bulb on, and the other 2 are off, for 3 hours. So our peak demand during that time is going to be 0.1 kW, but our total consumption is going to be 0.1 kW times 3 hours, which is 0.3 kilowatt hours.
Okay.
In the second scenario, we're going to keep all 3 light bulbs off for the first 2 hours, but the third hour, we're going to turn all 3 on at once. So in that scenario, our peak demand is 0.3 kW, because it's the sum of all 3 light bulbs. However, our consumption is 0.3 kW times 1 hour, which is a 0.3 kilowatt hours. Now, utility companies will look at this and take this very seriously because they have to size their power generation and distribution systems based on peak demand. If the consumer, and UNC Asheville as a consumer, if the consumer's demand exceeds their capacity, then we end up having what we call a brownout, which they can supply power, but it's at a reduced voltage, which can damage equipment and electronics. or we run into what would be called a rolling blackout, in which case we get no power at all.
Oh no.
So they take this very seriously. So going back to our two scenarios there, even though in both scenarios you have the same number of light bulbs and we consume the same amount of energy, how we use that energy and within what time frame greatly affects the demand. So the utility would need to be 3 times the size in scenario 2 as it would in scenario 1. Now, as I mentioned, we're able to monitor our peak demand at 30-second intervals. So this graph here is showing our peak demand for an entire month. And this is actually for the month of August, year 2016. You'll see it's a series of peaks and troughs. The peaks are all associated with our daily demand. On a typical day here at UNC Asheville, we will peak between the hours of noon and 4. So you'll see there's 31 peaks here, because there's 31 days in August. And those peaks are all associated with intermittent loads. And intermittent loads are generally controlled by occupancy. So as people come into a building, they turn on their lights, turn on their computers, adjust their thermostats. Also throughout the day, as the heating load changes, then our cooling systems will ramp up and down as well. So that's all intermittent loads. You'll notice as well that we have roughly 5 peaks, and then there'll be 2 peaks that are a little lower. And then there'll be about 5 peaks that are higher again, and then 2 that are a little lower. The reason for that is because we have difference between weekday peak and weekend peak. So the weekday peak will be a little higher, because then we have all of our faculty and staff on campus, and we're using more of the academic buildings than we would on a weekend. When we take a look at the troughs, then you'll also notice that the troughs don't go all the way to 0. The reason for that is there's a minimum amount of electricity required in order to keep the campus running, and that we call our base load.
Okay.
And base loads can range all the way from something small like exit lighting, all the way up to something large like our HVAC systems, where we need to keep the buildings conditioned in setback mode. Now there are 2 reasons why I picked the month of August to show you here. The first is you'll notice about halfway through the month, you'll see a very sharp and significant jump in both base load and intermittent load. You have any guesses to what could have caused that?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say students returning to campus from summer break.
That is correct. So during the summer break, we keep all the residence halls at a setback temperature to save energy. When students come back to campus, we'll put them back in occupied mode. And students will also bring, electronics, appliances with them as well, which will greatly increase our electric demand.
Yep.
The second reason why I chose this graph is that UNC Asheville's peak on an annual basis typically occurs near the end of August. In 2016, that specifically occurred on August 26th, and we peaked out at just over 3,900 kW.
Wow.
And this graph here shows UNC Asheville's peak demand as the blue bars. As we had mentioned, we peak in August, and we're at about our minimum peak in winter. The orange line there actually represents the demand for the Asheville region. That's in megawatts. You can see that actually peaks in the winter. And the reason for that is most of the residences and some commercial buildings in the Asheville region are actually heated via electricity, whether that's through electric resistance or air-to-air heat pumps, which is what drives up their winter peak. UNC Asheville, here we heat primarily via natural gas. So that's why our peak is shifted more towards the cooling months near the end of summer.
Okay.
So you may wonder, if our peak doesn't necessarily correspond with the Asheville region, why should we be as concerned with our peak?
I don't know. Why should we be?
Well, because utilities need to size their systems based off of demand. When we get our utility bill, we're charged not only for consumption, but also for demand. So when we take a look at our total utility expenditures from last year, we were just under $2.5 million.
Wow.
Of that, 21% was related just to demand. So besides trying to be a good environmental steward, we're trying to reduce our demand to also try and reduce our total utility budget as well.
Wow, okay. So I guess it's safe to say that UNCA spends a good chunk of money on electricity. But there's also environmental costs associated with peak demand. As I'm sure you guys are aware, we currently get our power from the Lake Julian power plant, which runs off of fossil fuels. I'm also sure that you're aware of the pollutions that are associated with fossil fuel uses. So it's very important that we limit our peak demand use because right now the Asheville community is projected to have its peak demand grow so much that we will need to build a whole new power plant. If UNCA starts the community off on lowering its peak demand, not only will we save money, but we can also mitigate the need for a whole new power plant in the future. So let's talk about how we can do that. What is facilities doing right now about peak demand?
When we look at trying to reduce not only our energy consumption, but also demand, there are three main strategies we like to look at. The first being behavior modification, and that's where flip the switch comes in. You guys have been going around and trying to institute and make people aware of different ways they can modify their behavior in order to reduce demand. You're going to be going into that in a little more detail later.
Yes.
But just as a quick little overview, things you can be doing are turning off and unplugging electronics. Another thing you can look at doing is trying to shift the time at which you use electricity. So knowing that our peak demand generally occurs between the hours of noon and 4, one thing you can look at doing is if you have a load of laundry that needs to be done, consider doing that in the evening or early morning. And the same can be said for when you want to charge your laptop or cell phones.
Okay.
If you do bring appliances onto campus, please try and make sure that they are Energy Star certified, because then they'll use less energy and should have a correspondingly lower demand as well. And then finally, adjust your thermostats as needed. The next step that we look at is overall building efficiency. And this is something more on the facilities side that we take a look at. So when we bring a new building online, we try and make sure that it is designed properly and as efficiently as possible. So we like to make sure it's constructed tightly. We want to make sure that it is insulated properly. We look at the window-to-wall ratios to make sure that we're maximizing daylighting, but at the same time that we're not having excessive thermal losses as well. Then we try and make sure that we're using appropriate technologies, so making sure that we have efficient mechanical equipment and they're able to modulate the amount of energy they consume in order to meet the load. And then finally we have very highly skilled technicians here on campus to make sure that the existing equipment we have is maintained correctly and operating efficiently.
Sounds good.
The last step that we look at doing is instituting advanced technologies.
Okay.
So as I had mentioned earlier that we are monitoring our demand through the building automation system. The primary purpose of the building automation system is to operate our buildings. So when we look at the mechanical systems for heating and cooling, we're able to control all of those through one integrated system, which makes us a little unique throughout the UNC system. So because of that, we're able to see and control the temperatures within individual spaces. So as we see our demand level creeping up, let's say we're at 3,000 kW, and we set a demand level at 3,100 kW, and we don't want to exceed that. We have the ability to then spread the set points within individual spaces across campus, say 1 degree or less.
Wow.
Now that sounds like a very small adjustment, but that can have large implications here on campus. And as an example of that, I have one last slide here. Now this slide shows our peak demand on a monthly basis all the way back to November of 2011. As you'll notice, at roughly July of 2015, there's a very large spike in demand. That actually occurred because we lost communication with our substation. So we weren't able to institute the demand limiting situation that we normally have into effect.
All right, so it sounds like small changes can have a significant impact. So let's go over some other small changes you can make right now in your office. And let's also see if we can have any effect on this live feed. So what I want you to do is go ahead and stand up, look around your office, and see what you can turn off, unplug, close, whatever, as long as it's not Facebook. So go ahead and get up. Turn off your lights, open your blinds, and let in that beautiful natural light. Also, for future reference, you can use a desk lamp with an LED bulb, and that can be more efficient than having all of your overhead lights on. Also, turn off and unplug any unused or unnecessary appliances, such as that coffee maker or that printer. For future reference, you can also adjust your HVAC system to be comfortable so you don't have to keep your window open. And if you can't adjust it to be comfortable, be sure to submit a customer request form, customer service request form, and we can get it so that you can be comfortable. Finally, go ahead and as you're turning everything off, keep in mind that you can contact your Flip the Switch coordinator. You can start the conversation with your coworkers and peers about what you guys can do within your office space and building, department, etc., to reduce your electricity usage overall. So, Dan, let's take a look at this graph again. How are we doing?
Well, it looks like we've kind of hit a plateau here. It can be a little difficult to determine what may or may not be affecting the demand profile at any specific instance, because, as I mentioned, this is for the entire campus. So this is a summation of all of the light bulbs, all of the computers, all of the chillers on campus. So we're going to see variations throughout the day. In order for us to see, any sort of significant drop we'd be able to see on here, we would have to have a lot of people all flip the switch at one time. So this is kind of a call to action, so to say, to see if we can see any movement here. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm guessing it's still a good thing, though, considering we are at our current peak demand for the day, because that's 12 to 4, and we're plateauing a little bit. So we can have a positive spin on it.
Very much so.
We're doing good.
Very much so.
Okay, so as you've been aware, we have had a little quiz going on the bottom screen here. So let's go over the questions and shout out our winners. Our first question is, during the hours of blank, daily peak demand occurs at UNCA. The answer is 12 to 4 p.m. Congratulations to Amanda Baranski, I'm so sorry, from Finance Administration. You have just been entered 10 extra times to win our EcoBee. Congratulations. Our next quiz question, I'll let you take it away.
Annual peak demand for UNCA's campus occurs during the month of?
August.
Correct.
Great. Congratulations to Holly Beveridge from Cultural Events and Special Programs. You also get 10 extra entries for the EcoBee. And last question, number 3. For our power savers who are tuned in today, what makes mini fridges so energy intensive?
They have smaller, inefficient compressors.
Yes. And congratulations to Rebecca Hale from Biology. So let's go through our comment section now and see if we have any questions that we can answer. So, first question, does UNCA use any renewable energy?
Yes, it does. We do have an installation of solar thermal, which we use for domestic hot water heating and reheat in the Sam Miller building. We also have a small solar photovoltaic installation up on Overlook Hall. Also, depending upon there's some controversy in terms of definition, but some people do define ground source heat exchange systems as a renewable system as well. And we have that installation on, I believe, roughly 4 or 5 buildings here on campus.
Wow, and isn't the quad also, doesn't it have the geothermal heating as well?
Yes, it does. That serves Rhodes Hall.
Okay, awesome. Next question. Does UNCA subscribe to Duke Energy's time of use rates?
No, it does not. The way UNC Asheville's utility rates work, it's not tied to specific hours through the day, but rather they define peak months. So with the way our peak demand is charged, it's the highest of either the existing month's peak, 80% of the peak demand for the summer months of the previous 12 months. I believe it is then 60% of the winter demand for the previous 12 months, 75% of our contract demand, or 1,000 kW. Wow. And it usually ends up being either our existing current month's peak or 80% of the summer month's peak.
Okay, cool. Next question. What types of appliances are approved to bring on campus to use in office spaces?
It is my understanding that there's currently not any restrictions on the appliances you can bring on campus. One thing we do ask is that you do not bring space heaters into your office. If you are uncomfortable within your office, we ask that you please contact facilities, and we'll look into the situation to try and make you comfortable without the use of a space heater.
Yep. Next question. How do LED bulbs compare to fluorescent bulbs? Good question.
That is. LED bulbs are more efficient than fluorescent bulbs. They also last longer.
Absolutely. They have a amount of lasting like 20 years, right? On average?
Depending on use, yes.
Oh, yes, depending on use. Okay. And how are we incorporating energy considerations into the new residence hall?
So that goes back to the strategy number 2 that we're talking about, reducing our demand. So we are instituting commissioning on that project, and the commissioning agent will be doing blower door testing on the residence halls to make sure that it is of tight construction, so that we aren't getting a lot of air that's leaking out of or into the building, which saves on energy. They've also done extensive energy modeling on the building as well, trying out different configurations and R values for the building to make sure that we're putting our money in areas that actually have an impact on energy consumption as well.
Nice.
And we are doing energy recovery. So where we need to provide exhaust from restrooms, we also need to replace that with outside air. So an energy recovery unit will take that energy from the conditioned air and put that back into the outside air as a form of pre-treatment. We're saving energy there as well.
Okay, cool. Another question is, do light timers use a lot of energy?
I'm a little unclear as to what they mean by a light timer.
Let's say motion sensors in office spaces.
Motion sensors do save energy.
Right.
They just have to be calibrated and operating correctly.
Okay. Now we will go ahead and award our Ecobee Prize. Our grand prize is Ren Williams from the English department. Congratulations, Ren. You get our amazing Ecobee thermostat. So now I want to take a special moment to say thank you to all the people who have been helping us with this segment today. The Video Production Lab hosting us right now, the other members of the Flip the Switch team, and also a special thank you to the people working in facilities and campus operations who work with this stuff every day. So thank you for joining us here today, and don't forget to flip the switch.